4 teenage girls, one quiet Austin yogurt shop, a crime so brutal it shook an entire city and left investigators searching for answers for more than 30 years. In this 4-part series, we take you step by step through the yogurt shop murders, one of the most haunting cases in Texas history. From a night of the crime to wrongful convictions, and finally, the stunning DNA breakthrough that revealed the killer's identity. This is part 2. If you missed part 1, I recommend starting there. And stay tuned until the end, because we'll link to the next part so you can follow this case all the way to the shocking conclusion.
December 6, 1991. It was supposed to be a normal night. Jennifer Harbison and her younger sister Sarah had plans after work. They were going to a sleepover with friends. Eliza Thomas, another coworker, was working her usual shift, and 13-year-old Amy Ayers, the youngest of the group, had tagged along to hang out with the older girls. The yogurt shop, I can't believe it's yogurt, was tucked away in a quiet strip mall in Austin. It was a place that felt safe, the kind of shop where families came for dessert after dinner, where neighbors would stop to chat. But sometime between 10 p.m. and midnight, everything changed. Around midnight, firefighters responded to a call about smoke coming from the shop. At first, it seemed like a small fire, maybe an accident. But as they forced their way inside, they stumbled upon something far worse than flames. The first responders found the bodies of all 4 girls. Jennifer and Eliza were discovered near the back of the store. Sarah and Amy were close to the front. The scene was almost too horrific to describe. The girls had been tied up. Each had been shot. Evidence suggested they had been sexually assaulted before the fire was set. An attempt to destroy evidence. The smell of smoke mixed with the silence of death must have been chilling for the firefighters and police officers who walked into that building. It was a scene they would never forget, and word spread fast. By morning, the entire city of Austin knew about the yogurt shop murders. Austin in the early 1990s wasn't the bustling tech hub it is today. It was a college town, a place where people felt safe leaving their doors unlocked. That sense of safety was shattered overnight. Parents became fearful. People double-locked their doors. The idea that someone, or more likely, several people, could commit such a calculated, cold-blooded crime and still be walking free terrified everyone. Detectives immediately launched one of the most intensive manhunts in Texas history. Dozens of officers were assigned to the case. They went door to door in the neighborhood, asking if anyone had seen anything unusual that night. But the fire had done its job. Much of the physical evidence was gone. Still, investigators were relentless. They combed through every inch of the charred shop looking for clues. They found shell casings. They found bullet fragments. They found ropes and bindings. But nothing gave them a solid lead on who the killers were. Witnesses began coming forward. Some reported seeing suspicious men hanging around the shop that night. Others claimed they had seen a strange vehicle parked nearby. Every tip was followed up. Every lead was pursued. But as days turned into weeks, the trail grew colder. Several people were questioned, and some were even considered suspects, but nothing stuck. The lack of solid evidence made it nearly impossible to narrow down who had been in the shop that night. Then came a break, or what police thought was a break. Months later, detectives identified 4 young men who they believed had been involved in the murders: Maurice Pierce, Robert Springsteen, Michael Scott, and Forrest Wellborn. The police believed they had their killers. The community was relieved, but this supposed resolution was still years away. In the meantime, the media covered every development. Local TV stations ran constant updates. Newspapers printed front-page headlines about the murders. The faces of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy were everywhere. Smiling school photos that became haunting reminders of lives cut short. For the families, grief turned into anger. They wanted justice, and they wanted it fast. And with every passing day, the pressure on investigators grew. Let's pause here for a moment, because to understand why this case became so notorious, you have to picture what detectives saw inside that shop. The front counter had been scorched. The cash register was missing money, suggesting robbery might have been a motive, or at least a cover. But the way the girls were killed suggested something far more disturbing. This was not a random smash and grab. This was calculated, organized. The girls were restrained, moved into different areas of the shop, and shot execution style. Whoever did this took their time. And that's what haunted investigators the most. The idea that these killers weren't in a panic. They were in control. As weeks turned into months, the case began to consume the entire city. Candlelight vigils were held. Fundraisers were organized. People placed flowers and notes outside the shop, which eventually closed for good. Detectives worked around the clock, but every time they thought they had a promising lead, it seemed to fall apart. Even the FBI was consulted, building profiles of what kind of person or people could commit such a horrific crime. There was one clue, however, that police kept coming back to: DNA. Even though the fire destroyed much of the evidence, a small amount of biological material was recovered. At the time, DNA testing was in its infancy, and results were limited. But investigators knew this was their best shot. They preserved every piece of evidence they could, waiting for science to catch up. The city holds its breath. By the first anniversary of the murders, there were still no arrests. By the second anniversary, rumors began to circulate. Some people wondered if the killers were still living among them. Others feared the case might never be solved. But detectives insisted they were making progress. And then, years later, they made the arrest that would change everything. But here's where the story takes yet another shocking turn, because the men they charged with the murders would eventually be released. Their convictions would be overturned, and the case once again would go cold. How did this happen? How could 4 men go from being convicted killers to walking free? And what did it mean for the families who had believed justice had finally been served? Stay with me, because in the next section, we're going to dig into the years of investigations, the controversial confessions, and the shocking courtroom battles that left this case unsolved for decades.
This case is far from over. Click right here to watch part 3, where we uncover what happened next. And trust me, you don't want to miss this twist. I'll see you in the next video.